This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, VP, Chief Investment Officer at Brigari Financial, with convenient offices in Hemet and Redlands, and wherever you are in Southern California. We welcome you to the show. I'm Ron Stutz. Logan, how's it been, buddy? What's going on?
Nothing much, Ron. Been busy as usual, but had a lot of good things going on lately. Just got back from one of those advisor conferences to kind of hear what's going on out there in the industry, and a lot of those updates on different products and rule changes and all that fun stuff financial. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good.
Been experiencing some crazy weather too from time to time. That's for sure.
Yeah, this last few months has been kind of out of the unusual, I would say, for out here in California. But it's always fun. Who doesn't love a little rain, a little snow, and then some sunshine?
I think it's been kind of crazy all over the country, actually. Some strange things going on out there. Hey,
really?
We're going to talk about getting you to and through retirement, folks. And the number to call if you'd like to have a discovery meeting with Logan Sadler is 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember that is by using the word PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. And we'll give you that number again a little bit later on in the show here. Interesting story. Talk about weird things going on, but I'm wondering if you saw this story about a man in North Carolina who was in his 50s. He recently developed what doctors are calling an uncontrollable Irish accent after getting treatment for prostate cancer. He says he lived in England for a while in his 20s, but never visited Ireland and has never spoken with an Irish accent before. But after he got treated for prostate cancer, all of a sudden he's got this Irish brogue.
That's pretty funny. Well, at least some good came of the cancer there, right? At least has a cool way of talking, because I think most of us enjoy a good Irish accent.
Yeah, but boy, that is bizarre. I'm telling you.
That is super bizarre. It is. It's very bizarre. Quick story there, Ron. We went to Ireland, me and my wife, a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we were there for quite a while, like 7 days or 10 days or whatever it was. And yeah, it was pretty funny because my wife was almost picking up on it a little bit, and it was like, whoa.
And she comes home talking like an Irishman. So
she was trying.
That's crazy. Hey, they say the customer is always right in nearly all the retail, restaurant, and hospitality businesses out there. The old saying is that the customer is always right. But I was just thinking that when it comes to financial planning, that's probably not wise to subscribe to that particular idea. What's the point of having a financial coach if your advice is better than your coach's advice? So let's talk about some statements you might hear from clients that might require you to push back a little bit because the customer is not always right. I'm sure you've heard folks tell you, the financial advisor, now's the time to get out of the market. Or maybe they said, now's the time to get into the market. If they say that, what's your response?
Yeah, and you're right first, Ron, on your intro there. I mean, basically, that is part of the financial advisor's job, and the coach is to be there to help kind of guide you along and to help make recommendations and to really help bring that value to the plan. So like you said, not always in our industry is the client right, so to speak, but they do have some good ideas and things like that, which I'm sure we'll probably touch on. But, in general here, speaking to what you were saying as far as, is now a good time to get into the market, or maybe now is a good time to get out of the market, do I hear that? Absolutely. Generally speaking, we hear a lot of clients that typically vary their risk profile because, again, our firm, we mainly deal with clients that are transitioning into retirement or planning for retirement. So most of the time, Ron, I hear the one, man, now is the time to get out of the market, right? Yeah. And I always tell people it's very hard to say today's a good time to get in the market or today's a bad time to get, type of thing, or today's the day to get out. One of those things we really like to focus on is the overall financial plan. And, generally speaking, a lot of the times as clients do approach that retirement phase, they might want less risk as they're approaching, right? Maybe they're 55 years old or 65 years old, and they're getting closer to where they're going to start having to take some income, and maybe their overall risk is changing. So they might want to reduce risk. Now, that might mean moving portions of the money out of the market to maybe annuities or structured notes or CDs or whatever else is out there to help diversify and lower risk. But I generally don't see clients, or I generally don't advise clients where, hey, you know what, you've been in the market 30 or 40 years, you got, maybe you have $100,000, maybe you got $1 million, it just depends. it's generally not the best thing to say, okay, let's take all of that money out and move it to all safe investments, all into an annuities or cash or whatever, whatever investment floats your boat. A lot of the times it's better to look at a strategic investment plan and help kind of, guide the direction of, you might still want some money in the market, right? Because even if we lower some of our risk in the market, it does provide a lot of good upside there, provides a lot of good liquidity and things like that. But it is okay to want to get more conservative and maybe get more income focused with other portions of the money. So it's all about trying to kind of find that balance as we transition into retirement, not just, go one way or the other. So that's why I would tell clients there, typically that's not always the right way to go is to say all in or all out, but really try to find that plan that really does fit, your overall goals.
Some folks may come in for the first time and you don't really know that much about them yet, and you're just you're in that discovery meeting, and they may say, listen, this is what I want to invest in. I just need you to pick the exact funds for me. And that's not really what you do, right?
No, it's really not, right? And a lot of what we do is, as we talk about all the time on the show, Ron, is very comprehensive. So we're looking at things like, tax strategies. We're looking at things like, estate planning, overall retirement goals, income goals, all that. So it's very, very rare I ever have someone come up and say, hey, what are the best funds I should be in for XYZ? Because yes, that is a part of what we do as far as the overall investment end, but really it ties into more to the financial plan. How is this going to affect our income goals, tax goals, legacy, all the other stuff that comes up? But if I ever, here's the other thing I do see, Ron, is where clients go, hey, Logan, I want to buy these 5 funds or 5 stocks or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of the times I'm able to pick out some of the flaws of those recommendations, just generally speaking, because I'll hear things like, hey, I want to buy these 5 tech stocks, right? I like Apple, Amazon, Google, or whoever it is. Yeah. Or I like, cryptocurrency, or I want, oil. A lot of the times they pick the same type of sectors. Mm-hmm. And so as we all know, when it comes time to investing, you typically want more diversification than one sector, right? Especially those ones I mentioned can be very volatile. So a lot of the times when we're out there looking and you think you might just need an advisor to pick funds for you, a lot of the times the advisor should be, again, not every advisor is this way, but they should be providing a lot more value as far as, yes, the asset management, looking at the investments and all that's important, but providing that overall, experience when it comes to the financial planning side that, to me, that really shows a lot of the value that an advisor should be doing. Something
else that folks say when you first get into a deep dive analysis of their portfolio, you may point out something and say, this is not doing all that well. And they say, well, it's fine that the returns aren't very good because the fees are low. Or just the opposite of that. The investment is doing well, but the fees are too high. So, what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, it's funny when it comes to fees because it's one side or the other. There's hardly ever anybody in the middle. And what I mean by that is I've had clients where they say, I'm looking to hire on your firm, want to come on board with you. What's your fee? What's your fee? What's your fee? Right? They're very, very hammered in on what the fees are. They don't really even care about the overall value you might bring, right? By maybe they have an advisor that charges, I'm just throwing numbers out, 0.5%, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, but all they do is they talk to you once every 2 years. They trade a couple stocks here or there for you, and that is really their service, right? And then you have other advisors that might be a lot more comprehensive, doing things like tax planning, estate planning, long-term care, doing investment portfolio management, as well as updating cash flows and income, all of the other stuff that can go into a whole plan. A lot of them might not want to pay more than $1 more to get that type of service, mm-hmm. right? They would rather go a little bit on the cheaper end and get less value. And then there's some clients, Ron, where they don't even have an idea of what they're paying, right? Some clients I'll say, well, how much is your current advisor charging you? They'll say, well, I have no idea, but he or she's kind of a nice guy or girl, right? And what type of investments are you in? Well, I'm not really sure. They've done okay, I think, but I'm not really sure. And so it's funny when that you see those two types of spectrums, Ron, one on the total opposite side, because I always say not one of those people is right? We're all different, and we all, the best part I love about it is you guys all get to choose your own financial advisors that you want to work with in this industry. And that's the best part because every one of them out there is a little bit different. Some of them are a lot more on the cheaper end and provide, maybe less value. And some of them are more on the expensive end and should be providing a little bit more value as far as the overall plan goes. And you can kind of pick your medium there. But I think it is really important to not focus as much just on fees, but also what am I getting in return for that fee? What's the value I'm getting on that particular product or that particular financial plan or whatever it is? And, focusing more on the value. Again, there's a lot of miscellaneous and excessive fees out there on things, so it's important to know about those. But You also want to look at the overall value and things like that you're getting inside the plan, and making sure, again, all fees are disclosed and you know exactly what everything costs, but make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck for your family and your plan moving forward.
One more comment that I wanted to ask you about. Let's say you bring on a new client, and a few months down the road, the client says, "My accounts are down right now, Logan. I don't think this plan is working."
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, that's funny, Ron. The thing about investing is we always tell people money goes up and down, right? Especially if you're talking about generally the stock market. And what we always tell people, what we like to focus on is the overall financial planning, because what this allows us to do is we go over your goals, your time frame. Hey, if we had a bear market, how much money would you be willing to lose? A 30% loss, is that too much for you? And some clients say, well, I'd go down a little further than that. It wouldn't bother me too much. Some say, man, that'd be way too much. I wouldn't be able to stomach that. And so we're able to really kind of dive through what your actual risk tolerance is and what your goals are, what your time frame is, as well as what type of income we're needing to produce, right? So when we have all that information put together, as well as the assets you have, we could really help build a very structured plan to help show you, hey, we're still on track, right? If the market's down, we're not down more than you said you weren't comfortable with, and so we're still on track, right? So I like to focus a lot more on financial planning than here's a product, you'll be fine, right? And then if that product doesn't work out, we're in trouble because all of our money was in that one product. So I think having a more diversified planning approach typically gives our clients that, more confidence in their plan, but also knowing that they have a plan. And a lot of you that I've been meeting with that have been calling into the radio show, or I've been meeting with you at events, or have been referred over by friends or family or whoever, it's very interesting because a lot of you guys don't have that comprehensive plan, right? You might have 3 or 4 mutual funds, an old 401k, and maybe some life insurance, but it doesn't really all speak to each other, right? I think it's, a financial plan should be a lot like a band where you got a drummer, you got a singer, you got a guitar player, right? They all are in tune together. Mm-hmm. And having a good financial advisor is typically the best way to help orchestrate that. And so if you're one of those clients out there that's been listening to this radio show for a while, or maybe it's just your first time, and you might have $300,000 for retirement, you might have $3 million, right? Just depending on your situation. I think it's a good idea for you to give us a call and see what value Regary Financial and my team can bring to you in your retirement.
You can get a deep dive analysis of your particular situation, and we're all different. Your situation is not going to be the same as your brother-in-law's situation or your neighbor's or your coworker. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like a full-blown assessment of where you are with what you're doing in your financial planning and getting to and through retirement. Call Regary Financial right now. Don't wait. 888-823-PLAN. Call, leave a message with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back first part of the week, and then you can set a time to have your conversation with Logan Sadler. And that's right. You're going to have a conversation with the guy that you hear here on the radio. Logan will be the one to talk to you, and you can get to know him. He can get to know you. And all of that's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all. So you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but you'll get a lot of knowledge out of this. 888-823-PLAN. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler at Regary Financial, serving you in Southern California. We'll have more coming up after this timeout.
At the end of the day, no one truly understands your financial wants and desires better than you. That's why it's important to have financial independence. This means you can work when you want, you know exactly where your income is coming from, and most importantly, your finances are stable. If this sounds like something you want, well, text the word advice to the number 21000, and Logan Sadler and his team at Regary Financial can provide you with their free guide on achieving financial independence. The free guide will show you how to create an action plan for getting to where you want to be. It'll explain how to calculate a financial independence goal, and it'll define what an ice egg is and why it's so important. Download it now by texting the word advice to the number 21000. Again, text the word advice to the number 21000 to gain your financial independence today.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and the beat goes on. Logan is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. Regary has been around for a long time, and the cool thing is that they have great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, even Medicare specialists to help offer well-rounded guidance in all things financial for their clients. And Logan just talked about that in the first segment of our show. It involves a lot of different things. You get well-rounded advice and guidance and help from Regary Financial. You can have a discovery meeting at absolutely no cost. Won't obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. The number to call is 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-PLAN. That's good for a conversation with Logan Sadler. No cost, no obligation. 888-823-PLAN. You know, we talk a lot on this show about Roths, and it seems that most people don't really have a clear picture of whether they should contribute to a traditional IRA or a Roth. And today on the show, let's discuss how to determine what's best for you. First, Logan, if you would, explain the difference between these two types of accounts.
Yeah, so essentially when you look at things, I like to kind of break things down very, very simply. So one of them, right, is basically how they work is you're going to be paying taxes now, right? And that means you have no taxes later, right? So when you pay taxes on a Roth IRA, you're paying taxes now. You get no deductions now, no tax advantages whatsoever in today's money. But when it comes time to withdraw in retirement, that money comes out 100% tax-free. Right. The other one is the opposite. One of them you get a big tax break on or can get a big tax break on now. But when it comes time to withdraw, you pay taxes at a later date based off whatever your income and whatever tax rates are in the future. And so some of you listen to the show might be 30 years old and some of you might be 60 years old, right? So tax rates 10 years from now or 20 years from now or 30 years from now could be a lot higher, they could be a lot lower, they could be the same, right? That's the question we don't have. When you ask a lot of the general experts, and I know me and you talked about this a lot, Ron, on this as well, generally speaking, I believe tax rates will be a lot higher in the future, just based off how things are going. So when you look at the difference there, one of them allows you to, again, get those deductions now, help you a little bit now during your working years. The other one allows you to have a lot more tax freedom and tax-free money down the road in retirement. So that's kind of the trade-offs there. Both of them are great accounts. Both of them are great to contribute to. One of them, having one of them is better than having nothing, right? So I always say having something to contribute to and having money for retirement is still better than nothing. But for a lot of you out there listening, there might be a huge advantage to having some in Roth versus all of it in just your traditional IRAs or 401ks.
Logan, why do you think so many people have contributed a lot more to traditional IRAs than Roths over the course of their lives?
Yeah, that's a great point because like you said, a lot more of us seem to know more about the traditional IRA or traditional 401k. And the reason why I think, Ron, is there's two reasons. I'll kind of break them down. One is the Roth IRA and Roth 401k have not been around nearly as long as the traditional IRA. The Roth IRA, I believe, came out in like 1997. So, some of us listening to the show might have kids older than that, right? So, that or grandkids maybe even. And so the biggest thing is Roth IRAs have not been around nearly as long. A lot of the people that I work with, like I say, are 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them didn't even have access to that till later in their working years or kind of right in the middle part there.
Yeah.
Now, traditional IRAs and 401ks have been around since I think it was like 1974 or something like that. So they've been around a long time. So generally speaking, when you look at retirement planning, a lot more people just have more information and have had access to the other types of accounts a lot longer. So I think that's one component to it, Ron. The next I would say is most people, when you talk about taxes, they're not worried about 5 years from now. They're not worried about 10 years from now. They're not worried about 20 years from now. A lot of the times when you go to a CPA and do your tax returns, you're worried about this year, right? So a lot of us are more worried about now than later. And again, not saying that's right or wrong, but just generally speaking, I think a lot more people have more concern about taxes this year and next year versus 5 or 10 years from now. So a lot of people haven't been looking at that long-term approach until maybe they've seen their parents retire or they had a friend retire or an aunt and uncle retire, and they've been talking about how important taxes are in retirement, right? I know we have a seminar that we talk about that's just labeled just that, the 4 stages of tax planning throughout retirement, because taxes for some of us can be a bigger issue in retirement than working, right? Of course, depending on income and assets, but it's one of those things now where I think more and more people are becoming more and more high net worth, right? We're seeing more and more clients with 200,000 in IRAs, 500,000, 2 million, whatever the amount is, you're seeing more and more people with assets in that traditional bucket. So a lot of them are saying, "Man, I wish I had a little bit in that Roth IRA," right? So you're seeing more and more education out there, and more conversations about which one is better or which one should you be using. Probably now more than ever.
Think about it for a second, and you may have made some of these points already. I'm sure you have, particularly with the tax situation. But why can a Roth be so darn powerful?
Yeah, it really can be, right? Especially when you talk about the average retirement person, where you look at they started putting money in their 20s or 30s or 40s, and they let it sit and they keep contributing till their 40s, 60s, right? It's one of those things where you look at the power of compound interest. A lot of us, we understand how that works, right? You put money in there, it grows over time, and it can be a pretty good lump sum for you when you're ready to go. But the advantage of the Roth IRA being all tax-free is something where it allows, as an advisor, I get super excited, right? Because when it comes time to start income planning and things like that, when we're looking at tax-free money, it is one of the biggest advantages to a retirement plan, because a lot of the times it's like, yes, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, that's great. We've got your income to $100,000 a year in retirement. Now let's start factoring in taxes, right? Now we got to look at maybe 20 or 30% in taxes, depending on what state and what bracket you fall into and how you file. But let's just say, I mean, you're looking at $20,000 essentially a year that is going to be paid just to taxes, right? So your income wasn't really $100,000. When you have clients that are now retiring with a bunch of money in their Roth IRA, we can get a lot closer to that number because we're not having to worry about tax planning as heavily on the income that's coming out, as well as legacy, right? When you leave behind money, I've had I talked about this a bunch of times on the radio, where I had a client last year of $1.7 million of traditional IRA money that got left behind to 2 kids. And, all of that money was taxable to the kids, and they had to take out over a 10-year period per the Secure Act. And those kids are making over $250,000 a year of income. Wow. So it got very, very tricky, and they ended up, they're going to have to be paying a pretty high tax, not penalty, but a pretty high tax, amount on those monies. And if they would have been in the Roth IRA, it would have transitioned tax free if done correctly. So, there's ways to talk about this all day long, Ron, but essentially there's a lot of power to a Roth IRA that you just can't get in a lot of the other investment instruments.
There's so many things you need to think about, and a lot of folks don't even, consider all those things that you just talked about, taxes on money that's left behind and all that kind of thing. And that's another reason to call Logan Sadler, have a conversation with him about your situation. The number to call is 888-823-PLAN. I'll give you that number again coming up in just a few minutes. Logan, if you would, I know you have lots of examples you can give us from folks you've worked with over the years. Give an example, if you would, of someone who should contribute to Roth instead of a traditional IRA. Somebody listening to the show today who's hearing all this stuff and really thinking seriously about it now.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, there's many, many factors out there of why you should and shouldn't, right? We could break this down all day, but just kind of a general topic where I look at things very simply is a lot of you out there that have accumulated, maybe you got, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in IRAs already, or maybe you have large pensions or you're going to have large payouts in retirement. Essentially speaking, your income is still going to be very high in retirement, right? I always tell people it all factors into, if your income's still going to be close to the same or higher in retirement, you're not going to have any more tax control then than you do now, essentially, right? So that's where it would make sense. If your income is going to be higher down the road or similar, I would recommend looking at the Roth IRA as an option for either Roth conversions or even just to start contributing to a portion of it in your 401k or IRA to help getting some tax-free money out there. Because again, if you have $1 million in your 401k and you can get another, couple $100,000 over that time frame into your Roth IRA, that's going to give you a huge, huge tax advantage to help utilize those assets in retirement. So that's kind of what it comes down to for me, Ron, is if your income is going to be, with pensions and your assets accumulated, will it be higher in retirement than now or close to the same? If so, I'd probably recommend shifting more of our money towards the Roth IRA.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Can you give us an example of a person who ought to contribute to a traditional IRA instead of a Roth?
Yeah, that's a great point. I have some clients right now where, maybe their income is extremely high right now, right? Maybe they're making $300,000 or $400,000 a year, or maybe $200,000 a year, whatever the amount is, and they could utilize the 401k IRA or traditional and put away some money there on a tax and get some tax advantages on it now in the 401k. That might be a great reason to do it, especially if their income's going to dramatically drop. I've had some clients where maybe they didn't plan as well for retirement as they probably should have, and maybe their income's ridiculously high now, like that $200,000-$300,000 mark. And when it comes time to retire, they're going to be looking at $80,000 a year, right? So the odds are showing they're going to be in a lot lower tax bracket in retirement. So they probably should focus more on the tax breaks now rather than in retirement, because their income is going to be dramatically lower, right? So I think there's a lot of those kind of yin and yang there, a lot of those different approaches that might make more sense to others. And that's why I always tell people, when you're talking about Roth conversions or Roth IRA contributions or traditional IRA, it really is all customized to that individual. And again, that's part of what our services are here, Ron, with a lot of you guys out there that are approaching retirement or getting closer to retirement and are looking for ways to help kind of get some tax control in your retirement plan. That's what a good comprehensive financial advisor should be, helping guide you and navigate you through some of those tricky questions. Because as you probably could see there's a lot that I can unpack and keep diving into. But essentially, it all comes down to meeting with the right financial advisor and help kind of getting some direction in which ways you should go that might help benefit your plan, not only today, but also, down the road 5 or 10 years or 20 years down the road. So give us a call. I'd love to have that conversation with you. And again, our discovery process doesn't cost anything to sit down. I don't push you off into anybody else. You actually come in and meet with me at one of our offices or over Zoom, and we'll kind of go through our process. Again, we have a very thorough process to make sure that, again, we're a right fit for you and you're a right fit for our firm, and kind of go through our process there and help guide you the best we can into retirement.
If you're listening to this show for the first time today, or maybe you've been with us for quite a while, isn't it time you went ahead and made that phone call? Find out what your situation is. You need to know where you are, and then how you can get where you want to go in your retirement. And everybody has a different idea of what they want to achieve in their retirement planning. You may want to travel a lot. You may want to just, spend a lot of time with your grandkids or whatever the case may be. But make sure you can do those things and have the lifestyle you've always wanted in your retirement years. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler. And Logan works with all 3 generations of some of the client families. Many of those clients have been with this firm for more than a quarter of a century, and he's seen just about every kind of situation there is. And as I mentioned earlier, everybody's situation is different. What's right for you is not right for me, and vice versa. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have what we call a discovery meeting, in that you discover things about Logan, he discovers things about you, you discover things that he can help you with in your financial planning, and it's not going to cost you a thing to do that, and not going to carry with it any kind of obligation. 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. More on the other side of this timeout.
We talk a lot about creating a better 401k, but are we actually taking steps to do so? Maybe it's time to stop talking the talk and start walking the walk. By texting the word advice to 21,000, Logan Sadler can provide you with his 401k action steps, a guide that provides you with powerful information that could potentially save you thousands in taxes and fees and put you one step ahead when it comes to your retirement. So text the word advice to the number 21,000 today. For this special report, text the word advice to the number 21,000.
This is the Financial Beat.
Hey, we're back now with more of the Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is on the radio. To go tell everybody you know, Logan has this radio show every single week, but also you might not know that there are podcasts you can listen to, and Logan even has his own YouTube channel. Logan, for the folks who might not know about this, what are the alternative ways that they can hear from you on a regular basis?
Yeah, so we started the YouTube channel, 6, 7, 8 months ago, and basically you get over to YouTube, type in The Financial Beat, same name as this show, And you can check out some of our YouTube videos. We got a lot of videos on there. A lot of them are viewer questions and things like that, different topics that a lot of you guys have been asking for us to cover here on the radio. And so we're able to cover those on the YouTube channel in a slower format that is more video-based. So I'll give you some illustrations and some talking points to go over. There's some on Roth conversions, on when is an annuity a good fit, or how to maybe reduce risk, tax efficiency, all of those different things that you can check out over there on the YouTube channel. Again, you just type in The Financial Beat and click subscribe, and there's videos updated weekly on there for you to check out, as well as we have the podcast. So you can head over to Podcast Land, whether that's Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to a podcast at. You can go check us out. Again, the same name there, The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And we're over 100 episodes now recorded and put up there for you to give you guys some good content. I always say out of those 100 episodes, you're probably bound to find one of them that pertains to your situation or to give you a little bit more education on your situation.
Probably a lot more than one.
Yeah. I hope so.
Hey, here's the other way you can get in touch with Logan by going to YouTube videos, podcasts, and the radio show. But you can also call and arrange to have a discovery meeting. Have a conversation with Logan. Get to know him. He gets to know you. And it's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. 888-823-PLAN. That is good for a discovery meeting. 888-823-PLAN. Call that number right now. Leave a message with your name and phone number. You will get a call back from Regary Financial, and then you can have a conversation either via Zoom, or maybe you might want to come into one of the offices in Redlands or Hemet. It's up to you. 888-823-PLAN. Cost-free, obligation-free. Hey, Logan, I ran across something earlier this week that I was just blown away by. I've never heard of such a thing. We'll call this the fun fact of the week. And I don't know how much fun it would be for the person involved here, but the longest time between two twins being born is 87 days. Have you ever heard of something like that?
I have not. And my first question is, are they still even twins at that point, right? That's a long time. I know me and you have both of our wives, we went through the whole childbirth process. And so just to think, 86 days in between, holy cow, that's a long time.
I don't know what in the world kind of agony would she have to go through during all that time?
I hope they gave her a good award or something, right? That's got for that record. That's got to earn something.
Really extenuating circumstances there, but I hope that doesn't happen to anybody else. That one person went 87 days, and
no kidding.
Hope that's it. And let's talk about building your financial house. For some people, the idea of putting together a financial plan doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun, but the idea of building a home sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. So let's find the similarities in building a strong financial plan and a dream home. First of all, you need a foundation, a really strong foundation. Mm-hmm. And I guess that would equate, in financial planning, that would equate to a good income plan, those very important income streams.
Yeah, you're right, Ron. And I think it's funny because a lot of what we do at our process, so we always talk about the discovery meeting, right? So after we decide if we like each other, we think we're a good fit, and again, we think we can provide value to you, we move on to that second meeting where we ask for your statements and everything like that, and we do a lot of analysis on your current portfolio, risk, all of that, and then we kind of help construct what we call your physical house. So it's funny, this conversation is going to be very similar to what maybe if you guys have came in for our meetings or have been thinking about it, it's very similar to kind of what our second meeting would be after we have all your financial data and goals and all that. Because like you said, Ron, it might be a lot more, it's a lot funner to talk about things this way, as well as it gives you a great visual of how your portfolio and your financial plan could be structured when talking about a house. So like you said, the foundation, when people think of the foundation of a house, what do you think of, right? You think of concrete, right? You think of something that ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
And that a lot of the times is the income plan and the protection side of the portfolio, right? So, concrete should be something that's not going anywhere. It's going to be stable. It's going to be there when you need it. So that's typically more safety type of investments, right? That's typically when we're looking at things like annuities or Social Security payouts or pensions. Those can be that principal protection or that safety portion of the portfolio. So it's something where, it's going to be there when you need it. It doesn't go up and down with the market, essentially speaking. And it's, sometimes they provide a decent rate of return, but that is the safety portion of your portfolio, would be the foundation. And in a lot of people's points, that might be the most important part, right? If something goes wrong with the foundation, the whole plan could crumble, right? If your house has a bad slab and is in a sinkhole, the whole house can go down with it, right? So you want to make sure the foundation is something that's super, super secure. I always tell people, if we're talking about foundation, that's not something that's going to be based off of the market volatility or anything like that. It's going to be very stable, and it's going to be there when you need it.
Yeah, a good, strong foundation, as Logan just said, ain't going nowhere, and you can count on it. You need to have those income streams that you can count on, for the rest of your life, really. The second part of the conversation here, how about the walls? Would that be equal to investments in perhaps alternatives?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Ron. So how we kind of structure things for a lot of our clients, because again, we work with a lot of retirees. So again, not every client's the same, but a lot of them have similar goals and things like that. So when looking at a plan, I know that for the most part, most clients, let's say you got $1 million just because it's an even point. Some of you guys might have less, some of you might have more. But just as an even point, a lot of us, when it comes time for retirement, a lot of us don't want to put $1 million in the market and hope it does well, right? That's not how most of us envision the retirement plan. You might want a little bit more active strategies. You might want some diversification. You might want some of it that's very low risk. So when you look at the overall physical house, you're going to want some of it in that principal protection area, like we talked about earlier, and some of it is the alternatives. So those should be, producing returns that are not as exactly tied to the stock market, or might have a little bit more protection built in, right? Maybe they're more medium type risk, or maybe they're even focused more on income. So when I look at that portfolio, a lot of how we structure things, Ron, is we'll look at the alternatives. We use a lot of structured notes. I know a lot of you guys have heard us talk about that in the show, and some of you might know exactly what that is, and some of you might not have much education in that realm. But essentially, structured notes and REITs are what we could use as the alternatives, to where we're looking at stuff like a structured note, for example, Ron. They could be principal protected, so you can get upside in the market up to a certain extent. A lot of them are 1 to 3 years long, so they're some more shorter term. And basically what they do is a lot of them can give you leveraged in the market. So sometimes they'll give you a greater return than what the market does. Some of them could be principal protected to a certain amount. Some of them could even offer you a barrier or a buffer to where, hey, it can go down 30% and you still can't lose any money, right? Depending on what that note's structured as. So that could be a very, very good way to help us kind of leverage some of that money, but also help us get some different types of returns that aren't just based off what the stock market's doing, and help give us some diversification, as well as to give us some other types of market exposures. When you mix in a lot of the real estate, we use a lot of REITs and real estate investments as well for some of those alternatives in there. Again, alternatives aren't where you want all of your money, but it's a good spot for a portion of your money to help give us some probably more consistent returns than generally speaking than the stock market, but also give us some returns that are not just based off whatever the S&P is doing that day, for example.
Okay, we're talking about building your financial house here on the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. Once again, the number to call at Regary Financial is 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. I'll give you that number again, just a few minutes here, but we're up to the roof now. And of course, everybody needs a roof on the house. There's several reasons for that. They're pretty obvious, but I guess the roof would equate in your financial planning to market-based investments. Am I right on that?
Yeah, exactly speaking. When I look at the roof, right, we've covered the principal protection and the safety portion of the foundation. Now the alternatives are things in the walls that are going to be doing kind of alternative to what the foundation as well as what the roof's going to do. Now when we're looking at the roof, those are typically market investments or diversified growth investments that represent typically the highest risk of the portfolio, right? So those are going to be the better rate of return over a period of time. They're going to give you liquidity, and they're going to help, typically provide that inflation protection, all that you're going to need in the portfolio looking long term. And again, there's different strategies. There's very active portfolios, very passive. There's covered call strategies. When you talk about just the market, it's very, very general because it could be so many different types of things. But when we have a client, Ron, like we were talking about that $1 million example, just to use an even number, I mean, some clients come in with $1 million, and based off their goals and needs, you might put $300,000 in the foundation, right? That's your safe money. That's going to be there to provide income. That's going to be the money that no matter what happens, it's going to be there. and then you look at your alternatives and other types of investments in your walls, we might have maybe $200,000 in there, right? That's going to be giving us probably a more steady rate of return than the market-based investments. But now you look at the market, we're going to put maybe $500,000 or $600,000 in there, right? So when you look at the overall portfolio, no matter what the market is doing, up or down, you're going to have some protection and some layers built into where your portfolio should be able to weather a pretty good storm. But also, if things perform well, you should be able to do pretty darn well based off what the markets and what investments you're in when you look at the overall plan. So that's why we like to look at things from the house perspective, because when you really put things in that type of situation, it gives the clients the diversification they'll probably need and allows them to understand things. And of course, we go a lot more into depth at our meetings as far as, what ETFs or what stocks or what notes we're using or what annuities or whatever is going to be in those positions. But just kind of gives you a general census there of how important having that physical house kind of put together can give you that diversification you'll need. It's going to give you the safety you'll probably need in your portfolio, just depending on how much you need in each of these positions is kind of a little bit different just depending on each individual's goals.
We're talking about building your financial house. We've talked about the foundation, the walls, the roof, and then there are the finishing touches. And I guess, Logan, that would mean estate planning and also insurance, right?
Yeah. You could say this is the trim, right? Maybe the baseboards or the paint on the house, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of the wrapping touches there is those protection layers, right? When you look at things like the estate plan is to me, like I was saying earlier, as important as the overall financial and investment plan itself, as far as who your assets are going to, how things are titled, there's your properties and things like that in the name of the trust correctly, and getting the correct estate plan. And then you look at things like insurance planning is tying together those things like long-term care insurance, traditional life insurance. If something happens to you, or how are we going to replace income, maybe using life insurance as an income replacement or as a way to pass on wealth to the next generation. It's just depending on kind of how your plan's kind of shooken out. But that kind of gives you a good overall view there of using that physical house. Inside that, you should have a good investment plan, built with growth, safety, and liquidity. Right. And then also you throw in these finishing touches like the estate plan and insurance planning there is going to give you that overall realm of what you're going to need in the retirement plan. So, a lot of you guys have heard us talk about the 5 pillars of retirement planning, and a lot of those are all covered inside that physical house we just talked about. You got income planning, investment planning, tax planning, healthcare and legacy planning, right? Those are all those big keys that are going to be foundations of your retirement plan in your physical house. So if you're one of those people out there, again, you've been listening to the show for a while, maybe it's your first time, and you're wondering, is your physical house in order and are things set up correctly for your retirement coming up, or maybe the one you just started? Give us a call and let's do a check-in and see how your physical house and see what type of shape it's in.
And the number to call is 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That is the number for Brigari Financial, with a couple of offices conveniently located, Hemet and Redlands. Wherever you are in Southern California, you can call this number and arrange to have a discovery meeting, either via Zoom. A Zoom connection is almost like being there, or you might want to come into one of the offices. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Now, if you're calling today, you'll need to just leave a quick message with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back first part of the week, and then you can arrange a convenient time to have that conversation. And that conversation is going to be with Logan Sadler, the same person you hear on the radio here. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. 888-823-7526. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler, and coming up we have some great questions that have come in from some of our listeners, and Logan's going to get to answering those in just a moment. You're listening to The Financial Beat.
We all know Congress has approved trillions of dollars in spending the past year. It's all on top of the tens of trillions of dollars of debt our nation already owes. Yet we're living with some of the lowest tax rates in history. Now, how long do you think that's going to last? Learn how you can prepare for future tax implications by watching Logan Sadler of Brigari Financial's exclusive webinar, How Tax Planning Changes Through the 4 Stages of Retirement. Just text the word advice to the number 21,000, and we'll text you back a link to the webinar right away. Text advice to 21,000 and make sure you don't have to pay a cent more in taxes than you have to. To access the free webinar right now, text advice to 21,000.
Like what you're hearing on the show? Did you know that Logan Sadler also has a podcast? On the podcast, you'll hear more discussion about important retirement planning topics like Social Security planning, tax saving strategies, and much more. Subscribe to the Financial Beat podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all major podcast streaming services.
1, 2, 3, 4!
When musicians are performing, they typically need someone to count them into each song. Without that count in, the musicians might be out of sync and the song could fall apart. It's similar to your financial plan. All of your investments must be in sync, working towards your financial goals. Keep listening to the Financial Beat and learn how to make sure that your investments are playing together perfectly.
This is the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, the star of this show. He's been doing this show for a pretty good while now, and also has a whole lot of podcasts that are built up out there, over 100 of those that you can go to and listen anytime you want, even 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, or whatever. But we appreciate your listening to the radio show here today. Also, don't forget to check out Logan Sadler's YouTube channel. Simply go to YouTube, type in Logan Sadler, Rigari Financial. You'll find a whole bunch of helpful videos there that will really provide you with a lot of good information. The number to call if you'd like to have a discovery meeting with Logan is 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today, leave a message with your name and phone number. You will get a call back, and then you're going to have a conversation with Logan that's not going to cost you anything and not going to have any strings attached at all. 888-823-PLAN. Why would you not take advantage of that opportunity? Let's go to the mailbag here. We've got some great questions. First one is from Lenny in Moreno Valley. And Lenny says, between my state retirement pension, Social Security, and our savings, I believe we have accumulated enough money for me to retire. I'm only 61. I make $160,000 a year, and I enjoy my job, so I plan to keep working for at least the next few years. Does it make sense to stop saving in my 401k and use that money for something else?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate you writing in, and thanks for listening to the show. Great. I mean, that sounds awesome. It sounds like you're well on a good way to retirement plan, and you got some things kind of working in your favor there. The one thing I would say is that, obviously great you enjoy your job and you plan to keep working, so there's a lot of flexibility here in your plan. But one of the things I would say is, you're looking, should you be using that money on something else? My question would be, what else, right? What else are you putting it towards? Is it paying off high interest debt, maybe paying off your house? Is it things like that? Or is it maybe just putting into a savings account or doing something like that? That would be my big question there. And one of the things I like to encourage people is to contribute. That 401k probably has built you a pretty good wealth over the last, decade or 2 decades or however long you've been contributing to it. So it's something where I would probably like you to contribute that all the way till the end, right? A lot of the times getting as much in there as you can. I always tell people it's very rare in a retirement plan where you have too much money, right? That most of the time you're still going to need some access to things like long-term care, inflation protection. A lot of that can help be built in with extra balances in the 401ks and things like that. So it might be in your best interest to keep contributing to that 401k all the way till the end. And again, I always recommend, it sounds like you got a pretty good idea of some things going on there, but I would like to kind of plug all this in with the 401k balance, the rest of your, the rest of the stuff we typically talk about in the show, and making sure the whole financial plan is all covered. And then, then we could decide on if we want to put it somewhere else. But if you did have some very, very high interest debt or things like that were dragging you down, and your overall plan would be complete without the 401k contributions over the next few years, then maybe that might make sense. But more often than not, it's probably better to keep going into the 401k. But I'd love to have that conversation with you, and we can really kind of dive into your situation and see which one will be the best fit for you.
And once again, Lenny, the number to call to make that happen is 888-823-PLAN. Again, we appreciate your question. That's a great question. Next one here is from Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is in Loma Linda. Elizabeth says, long-term care is so expensive. Oh, boy, you think?
Yeah. Yes.
She says, my husband and I are 47 and 49 right now. Is this a good time to look into insurance? Do you have any advice as to how we might be able to limit the cost?
Yeah, I think that's great you're thinking about it, right? At your age, 47 to 49, there's a lot of really good carriers and different types of coverage you can get around that age. That would be a good way to go. The only thing about lowering costs, sometimes they have some joint policies depending on assets and things, how we're going to fund it. Some of the joint ones give you a pretty good benefit break on there as far as the cost of the policies and things like that. The only way to technically save money, I would say, is health, right? Make sure your weight's low, make sure you're not taking a bunch of medications, or making sure your overall health is as good as possible people will typically save you on those. That would kind of be the only way I could think of how to save on that cost. But and then as well as what benefit are we trying to solve for is kind of the best thing. There's some of them out there that pay out unlimited amount of care benefit. Let's say they're going to give you, let's say they're going to give you $5,000 a month if you need to go into long-term care. Some of them only pay for 24 months or 36 months or whatever the date is. Some of them pay unlimited. So it's really important to kind of making sure you have a professional that can help kind of navigate the best policy that you're trying to get. Because again, when it comes to financial planning and investments and all these other things out there, there's so many different ways to kind of slice it and dice it. And you want to make sure that it's that policy and that investment and that tool is being used to your advantage and not just the insurance carrier. So definitely would love to walk you through on that. But it sounds like you're definitely on the right way of life there, thinking about that in your late or early 40s.
Got one more question here for you today, Logan. It's from Ed in Orange County. And Ed says, why is the recommended percentage of my portfolio devoted to stocks any different at the beginning of my career than at the start of retirement? I don't understand why I should reduce my exposure to stocks when I retire, as I'll still have 30 years of investing ahead of me.
Man, this is a great question. It's probably one of the best. It's probably one of the better ones we've had in a long time. Not that all of them are normally really good. This one just gets my mind spinning here because the way he put it was perfect.
Yeah.
So Ed, let me ask. I'll kind of answer this in like a broad term, but I'd love to. If you want to call and have a conversation, I'd go a little bit more in depth. But like you said, stocks and things like that are great. I always tell people. So many advisors get on the radio or on these shows and say, "Hey, annuities are bad. You should put your money here," or "Stocks are bad. You should put your money here." I think a lot of these different tools and things like that out there are very, very good, just depending on how we use them. Right? Stocks might be better for more of your money than others, and all those different types of things depending on your plan. But let's talk about the advantages of stocks while you're young. Is you're putting money in there, you're dollar cost averaging into your 401k or IRA, right? Meaning market's going up this month, you're putting money in, market's going down next month, you're still putting money in. So over that time frame, it's going to be a very efficient way to invest over a 20 or 30 year time frame. What is the difference, to kind of shortly answer your question, is typically when it comes time for retirement, you're not dollar cost averaging in, you're dollar cost averaging out, right? So now instead of putting money in, you're taking money out. So just a quick example here, I'm just running through this in my head, so bear with me here. But let's say you had $100,000 in your retirement account, right? And a lot of you guys out there try to follow that 4% rule, meaning you take 4% of your income out per year, which again, we'll be able to dive deeper into that in our conversation, whether that's a good thing to do or not. But just the general concept here. So you got $100,000, you're taking 4% per year out, which is $4,000 per year for income, okay? Let's say that stock portion of your portfolio went down 30%, right? So you already took 4,000 out. So now you got 96 grand. So now you lost the 30%, which would be around $28,000 and some change, okay? So that put a big, big hit on your portfolio. So now you got 68 grand, right? So when you look at this, you went from, 100,000 down to 68,000 pretty quick. Now a lot of people think, well, the market just has to go back up 30% and I'll be good, right? Well, not necessarily. If the market went back up that 30%, that's only $20,000 and some change, right? So now you're only back up to $88,000. So when you look at that type of way, that when you're taking income out of a portfolio and your investments can go through these huge ups and downs periods, it can put a lot of stress on the overall portfolio, and that's how you see a lot of people end up potentially run out of money a lot faster than others because they don't have a very structured income plan. So that's why we talked about, earlier in this segment, the financial house and looking at your physical house overall. You want to make sure you have different layers of protection and income streams and things like that built into your plan to help alleviate that stress of, potentially running out of money. But essentially, to answer your question, long-winded there, Ed, that is why it's really important to make sure your plan's customized to you, and depending on how much income you need, how long you need it to last, to make sure we're putting enough risk versus enough conservative money and alternatives in there to fit your overall goals and needs.
I don't understand what you're saying, and you've never been long-winded before. So
yeah, first time, right?
First time for everything. Logan, before we go today, I know that, once again, I think it bears repeating all the ways that people can get information about you. They can go to the website, they can go to YouTube, they can listen to the podcasts, and they can certainly listen to this radio show. Why is it so important for folks to reach out to you right now?
Yeah, a lot of, like we always say, right? A lot of you guys out there listening to the show have been listening to it for a while, or maybe it's your first time. And a lot of you guys are getting closer and closer to retirement. I've met with some people from the radio that are retiring next month. Some of them are retiring in 2 years. And the more time you give us, the better, right? To come into that discovery meeting, what we always tell people is it's not a high-pressured sales thing. I'm not any good at those types of situations. And so how we typically do things, it's over 3 meetings. So we have a 3-meeting process before we bring clients on board. Meeting one's just an intro discovery meeting. It typically takes about an hour, where we'll dive into your situation, what you're looking to do, your assets, and kind of go over your overall kind of rough draft plan. At meeting 2, Ron, that's where we get back together, go over your physical house, show you some recommendations, some holes that we might need to fill, some cracks you might have in your foundation. And typically clients don't come on board with our firm till after the 3rd meeting, right? Meeting 3 is when we've went over things multiple times. We make sure the plan is really customized and fit to you. We've covered all the areas we needed to cover in the plan. And so that's why we always tell people it's really important to make sure when you're hiring an advisor that's really that specializes in that state of life that you're in, right? If you're younger, get an advisor that specializes in growth. If you're transitioning to retirement, make sure you have an advisor that specializes in getting people to and through retirement. And that's just what we do. And when you make that call, you'll have a chance to sit down with myself. And again, really just kind of interviewing us. We'll interview you essentially too, to make sure we're both a good fit. And like we always say, if you have $300,000 or $3 million, I guarantee you anywhere in that range, we'll make an impact in your life and bring some value. So give us a call. I'd love to spend some time with you.
Here's Logan Sadler's number, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. I promise you have a conversation with Logan. It's going to be very pleasant. It's not going to be any salesmanship, no pressure, none of that nonsense. Just have a conversation to get to know Logan. He can get to know more about your situation, and then you can decide if you like to work together. It's just that simple. You can have a conversation, a discovery meeting, by calling 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today. Leave a message with your name and phone number. It's just that easy. You'll get a call back first part of the week, 888-823-PLAN. That number is for Regari Financial. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer, and he's on this radio show every single week with me. And I'm telling you, Logan, it's a real pleasure to be on this show with you, because I know you reach so many folks out there.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. I always enjoy doing it. I've been meeting with a lot of you guys lately, and a lot of you guys have been coming on board with the firm, and I appreciate the positive, reviews and feedback on the show. And me and Ron are doing our best here to try to update it each week to give you guys some good insights, some good education here in retirement planning, and we look forward to being back here next week with another show.
One more time, that number is 888-823-PLAN. You've been listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. We'll see you next week.
The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for anyone. All information discussed is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of BD Financial Group and do not necessarily represent the views of Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult with your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory and financial planning services are offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Alpha Star and BD Financial Group are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.